Second grade fiber studio. Today in our lesson, we are going to review threading a needle, tying a knot, and we're going to learn the overstitch. Last year, you used a big needle to go through the wide openings of the burlap, and this year we're going to be using this smaller needle with a finer point so that it can sew through the fabric we're using this year, which is felt. I'm going to review threading the needle using yarn so you can see it a little bit easier. All right, I take the yarn, pinch it between my fingers with just a tiny bit sticking up, and then I lay the eye of the needle down on top of it and press down. Sometimes I even saw back and forth just a tiny bit, pull it through. Next, I take the two ends and I put them together and I hold them, and then I pull the needle down to the other end. Then I take the ends that are together and I make a loop. I lay it down. I pick up my loop and bring the ends through the loop, and then I push the knot down towards the end. So I have a needle on one end and then the knot on the other end. Threading the needle for felt. First, I'll measure out a length of string as long as the piece of tape on the supply table. Then I'm going to pinch my thread between my two fingers and then let it stick up a teeny tiny bit. I find the eye of my needle, that's the hole in it. I slide it down over it, give a little sawing motion, and pull that string through. Next, I'll put the two ends together, and I'll make sure that my needle is on the opposite end. See my needle and my two ends. Now I'm going to tie a knot. I lay my string down with my two ends together. I make a loop. See the loop? I lift up the loop, take the ends, put them under and through the loop, and I pull, pushing the knot towards the end. Now I'm ready to sew. This is the overstitch. It's different than the stitch we learned last year because it goes up and over the side of the fabric. So I look for the dot and I go up on the dot and I pull it over and around the side, up on the dot, over the edge, up on the dot, over the edge, up on the dot. Let's look at that again. I put my needle into the dot and I come up and around. If there's no dot, you just bring your needle up through both layers of fabric and around, spaced out about a finger's width apart. I'm going to move that stitch since it's a little crooked. There we go. And up and over the edge. I stop sewing when I get about a hand's width away from the end of the thread. So you see, I can lay it down and there's a hand's width of thread. We need that for tying a knot. I'm going to either do a 3-stitch pile knot where I go through, make one tiny stitch, and then I take my needle and I go through that stitch 2 more times, a total of 3. That's why it's called a 3-stitch knot. And then I cut the string. Or I can do a granny knot. I separate the 2 strings. I crisscross them. I take the one that's on top and I push it through the loop. And then I pull tight. Then I do it again. I take both ends, I crisscross, take the one on top, push it through the loop, and pull tight. I snip the ends and I have a secure knot. Today you stop either when it's the end of class, or if you have time to get a second string to stitch it so that just your hand fits in, just your 4 fingers of your hand, that's great. Next week what we'll do is we'll decorate with Sharpie. We'll finish our stitching up until that 4-finger end point, and then we'll stuff it and stitch it closed, and you can take it home. Today, to make sure you get your own back, you'll get a piece of tape, you'll write your name and class code on the tape, and we'll save it in a bag till next week. Happy sewing!